I'm here with the director of Earwig, Lucile Hadžihalilović. Lucile, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having invited the film to the festival. I'm really happy about it, to have the premiere there.
I am so happy myself. We've been following your films for many years here, and very glad to be premiering the new one in our platform competition. I want to ask you first about, I guess, what drew you to telling this particular story. It's a beautiful film, it's very haunting, similar in mood to your earlier two features, but different, I think, in the story and how you tell it. And here you're adapting a novel by Brian Catling. Can I ask about what drew you to the novel and how you wanted to adapt it?
I guess the novel was pretty very, very striking, very rich, very mysterious, and there was a lot of amazing images in the novel. And the first one, I mean, that I guess drew me to make a film out of this book was this image of it's about a girl who has ice teeth. Teeth made of ice, and I thought that was such a strong image, and that resonated really very much into the unconscious. So yeah, because it's both like so fragile and so strong, and I really wanted to see that on screen, to see if it was possible to see a girl with such teeth. And then we got some surprise by making it, and maybe it changed a bit the focus of the film, but that was the first reason why. I think there was images that were, and things and feelings and emotion that were really, really had a very deep resonance in this book, and also many familiar elements, but also unfamiliar. So the combination of both, like it took me to another, to different path than the one I usually try to follow, especially in terms of story. As you said, there was much more of a story.
Can you talk a little bit more about that image that first attracted you of this girl with ice teeth, these dentures that have to be tended to every day? Teeth can have so many symbolic meanings. They appear in our dreams. They fall out sometimes. But they're also a threat to others as well. What for you was the meaning of these ice teeth that this girl has?
I don't know if it was about meaning. I think it was more because to this image I could associate different things, like something very primal, something very this orality, this with teeth you can bite, but it's teeth that can melt, so that they are fragile. So and I guess that's this antagonism between the meaning of that was interesting for me. But also, in fact, what I realized when I was doing the film is that maybe the thing was with ice, so the ice melt, and then maybe it was like the myth of Sisyph, this man who were taking care of the girl, and it's pretty much his story rather than hers. He wanted the girl to be complete, to have teeth, and then the teeth melt, so he had to do that every day again and again. And I thought, in fact, that was even more interesting, this idea, very touching, the fact that he had to do it all the time again to make her complete and perfect somehow. And yeah, that was the reason why I guess I wanted to make it.
You know, it's interesting when you describe this relationship between the man and the girl, it sounds very lovely in terms of how he takes care of her and making her complete again every single day. But for me, there was also an atmosphere of real threat, of danger. And I don't know if that was what I was bringing to the film, but there is a sense of something that might happen at any moment. Even from the first scenes, it felt like there was the possibility of violence also. Is that something that is just built into your cinema, or how do you bring these two tones together? It's very gentle, but also very threatening.
I guess it's threatening because it deals with the mouth and the fact that this man is putting his hand inside the mouth of the girl. But it does not, there is no violence in it. It's really something like a task he has to do very carefully, very gently, and is very, and I was very, very keen to have him being careful and being not maybe he's not like a father with a girl, but he's really accompanying his work carefully and nicely and precisely and with no violence. And she's not afraid. We are afraid for her, I guess, but she's not. And that was an element that was quite disturbing in the book, that the girl was never anxious or scared by what he was doing to her or about her life, this kind of a life inside the apartment with no outside, and she accepted until a certain moment. But she and I thought that was very interesting, because we were projecting our fear on this situation, and she was totally innocent about that. And that's also a reason why I was interested to see that and to develop that into a film.
Yeah, I have to admit I was afraid for her for a lot of the film, because I kept thinking something terrible might happen.
Sorry, you were not afraid for him?
Less so, and maybe that's just what I bring to it, and my, the history of watching cinema, the fairy tale element of the film as well, all of these, girls in fairy tales, whether it's a wolf or a witch or something that might threaten them. So I guess I'm bringing all of these things to it. But I really love that tension, that it's both at the same time. I want to ask you a bit more about the technical tools you use to create the atmosphere in the film. A little bit about just the production design. You shot in Belgium, I think. Was it a real house or was it a built set? The cinematography, the way you lit and composed the images. How did you create this mood?
Well, first of all, we were looking for a place where to shoot the apartment, the house, and I really wanted to find a real place and not to build a set, because I think that when you go to real places, you got a lot of ideas that you wouldn't have imagined. And in this case, so we found not exactly an apartment, but like a house with 2 levels, and it looked like a bit of a maze. And I think that was very interesting, because you couldn't really know where exactly the rooms were compared to the others, and you are a bit lost, I think. And that was the general idea, to give a kind of sense of something a bit blurry, a bit very mental. And also what we try to do also is to have as much as possible to make the void. For instance, in this apartment, there is almost no furniture, no props, or when they have really a function. And so this emptiness was again something a bit like in dreams, or something like again a mental space, and that was very important. So this is what we tried with above the production designer and the DP to keep this emptiness. And also we wanted to be very minimalist in terms of lights, so we only used like natural light. But the challenge was, in this apartment they had the shutters closed all the time, so it was how to deal with this darkness, this semi-obscurity. And that was also an element that I was really very interested to try to do in the film. And also, of course, with the lamps that are on set. So both the DP and the production designer worked very closely together. And of course, well, we decided what colors we wanted and so on. And this emptiness also, we tried to get it outside, like almost no extras, no other people, no cars, and to keep also I would say, a certain type of abstraction. So we don't know really where we are exactly in terms of country, where we are in the time. It's a pre-modern era, but it's not precisely. It's after a war because they talk about the war, and then that's how we worked.
Yeah. There's something almost floating about the sense you give us. We don't know exactly where we are, probably in Europe, but where we don't know exactly. There's a telephone, but beyond that, we don't have much sense of the exact time period either. And then when you go outside of the house, there is this kind of remarkable sense of, where are we? Are we in a dream landscape? Which I really loved. I want to ask you about how you think Earwig connects, if it does at all, to your previous two features, to Evolution most recently and to Innocence before that. For me, there's some obvious things. You're often dealing with young people at the center of your films. There's a kind of a fluidity in terms of where they are as people, as subjects in the film. But for you, is there a kind of a bridge between the three films?
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, what attracted me to this book, I could see in it many familiar elements, and of course this kind of fairy tale aspect, but gothic somehow, and the fact that it could be a coming of age story for that girl, except that in that book, it's like the reverse angle for once. It's about the man and not about the child. So the child was there, a story, etc. But it was the story of the man, and I really liked that it's like a reverse angle. But apart from that, also what was familiar for me was maybe this idea of being enclosed in a place, and which is both a kind of a cocoon or paradise, and then you have to go outside, or is it scary, is it exciting? The rituals also, the very simple but very a certain threat underlined in this film. In the book, for once, some kind of violence happened, which is more than in my previous films. So I was also interested to do that for once, to go a bit more beyond the underneath thread, but to let it explode at a few occasions. And it's funny because the very first film I did, which is called La Bouche de Jean-Pierre, Mimi, it's a 15-minute film, and it was in Toronto a long time ago, and somehow this film, Earwig, is like the reverse angle of that film.
Okay, interesting. So everything is connected in some way.
Yeah.
So then I have to ask you, because I think you have a very unique cinema. There's really no other filmmaker working right now that I can compare you to exactly. And that's rare. I think most filmmakers, they're working in a field where many others are working. But for you, I think it's something unique. I want to ask you if you can reflect on the different steps that led you to the kind of cinema that you're making now with Earwig. Do you trace it back to, I don't know, the literature that's interesting to you, to other cinema, to music, to your childhood? Where do you think you started the path that got you to where you are now as a filmmaker?
I guess I am more and more interested in what is logic of a dream or nightmare in films, rather than traditional way of story. And I suppose it's at the very beginning, I think it was a bit difficult to build a world that is not too much linked to reality. So it came step by step. And I was talking about this first film, La Bouche de Jean-Pierre, which is quite realistic, about a man and a little girl, and there is a kind of Red Riding Hood beyond, but more and more in my films, they are becoming more fantasy somehow. And I guess it's when I was a teenager, when I began to go to the cinema, I was extremely, I loved Italian horror movies, giallos, and the first film I guess I saw as a personal choice was Dario Argento's first films, for instance, and it was like very dreamy, very like beautiful, attractive, exciting nightmares. Mm-hmm. And I suppose it is something that I would like to explore more, this path. Of course, not repeating, not doing what he has done, but I guess it's this kind of direction, like exploring something which is more oniric. Mm-hmm. And then of course I love in literature fairy tales, and for some reason I'm very interested by and fairy tales and children, of course, because they are usually very linked. But I think it's I'm not thinking especially in one directors mm-hmm. that have helped me to to develop my own films, but I suppose some films I saw when I was quite young was very very important, like Eraserhead, for instance. Yeah. I saw when I was 18 or 20 years old, and it was really such a wow, the discovery, and you could make something which is also very a bit like a painting or collage, or it's not purely story, it's also very very much image and sounds and in another logic. So I guess this is what helped me to think that it's possible to make this kind of films. Mm-hmm. And little by little I maybe was a bit more confident to go to that direction. Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of the references you mentioned, whether it's Eraserhead or Argento, giallo generally, horror films, fairy tales, they all lend themselves to a psychoanalytic approach. And I wonder how you feel about psychoanalysis in cinema. Of course, there's a lot of theory that's used to articulate what goes on in some of these films. But is this something... because psychoanalysis in terms of approaching cinema can be very theoretical. Your films feel like they have a more visceral, emotional approach. But how do you feel about psychoanalysis when it comes to exploring your own films as a tool?
I really don't try to analyze my films, and especially not when I'm doing them. I mean, somehow I'm not conscious of what I'm doing when I'm doing it, and I need to. It's only when I have finished the film, and maybe even when there is an audience, and the audience told me, when I hear what the audience feel or see in my films, I realize fully what I have done. What crime I have committed, and then I understand it's a process of making things coming to the light, out from the unconscious, and to a bit like dreams. Some dreams. I mean, this is what is great with cinema. I think it has really something very, 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 very linked with the process of dreaming, and dream reveals not only, I think, things of your own story, but also something more like archetypes, more like I don't know, Jung would say. So in that way, I think, I'm interested in analyzing my films maybe in a more Jungian approach than something more about my personal story. Story, or okay. My English is not very good, and it's hard to explain exactly.
I think I understand. It must be especially difficult then to be able to make sure that when you're making your films, which are, as you said, rooted in things like dreams and fairy tales and what's going on inside of your mind, to be able to communicate to the people you're working with, to make sure that you're all making the same film, you know, that your cinematographer, your actors, your production designer, they all have to kind of crawl inside your head as well.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
Yeah, but I mean, it's a game. We are playing like children, so it's a bit like, okay, let's say that the rules are going to be that. So for instance, let's play with these colors, with no lights, with obscurity, or with these elements. And by doing it, they bring also ideas. They saw something in the story or on set, and it's a kind of a collective dreams that came out at the end. And that's again what I love with cinema. It's that in a way you are dreaming all together. I mean, some people don't like that, of course, but some other, and I have been very lucky with my DPs or production designers that they like to play the game, and this is, and little by little, with very I mean, it's about something mental, but it's also very, very concrete. So it's about how do we make the teeth, how do we make, what kind of glasses are we going to find, and how can we make the dust and all that. And then by thinking about these very concrete elements, we somehow find meaning in the story, or make links between things, and so it's very, in a way, very simple. The process.
Okay.
But you have to believe really very much in the power of these little elements.
Well, Lucile, thank you. I've been so glad to be able to enter your collective dream as well, and to kind of experience these beautiful nightmares that you make. We're so pleased to have Earwig at the festival and platform, and I'm really glad that you were able to speak with us about it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.